One gets older, one gains perspective, hopefully. My website, jamesperloff.net, I've published several articles related to the golden age of television of the 1950s. Here's a couple of them. The content of TV programming then was, of course, very wholesome. Leave It to Beaver, Father Knows Best. Christianity was put in a positive light. Absolutely no sex, no profanity, no homosexual characters, no graphic violence. Because the deep state knew that if TV had that type of content, Americans back then would not have bought the sets. Their purpose was to first get TV sets into as many homes as possible, after which the content could be changed. I and a few other people of my generation have sensed that the change began particularly during the TV season of 1963 to 1964. Here's an AI-generated graphic. By the 63 to 64 season, 94 to 95% of American homes owned televisions, up from just 9% in 1950. So from the deep state's viewpoint, it was now time to begin using TV as a tool that would gradually degrade the culture. But something else was going on simultaneously. 1964 was also the year of Tonkin Gulf and the beginning of the escalation of the Vietnam War. Vietnam has been called the first television war because of the first war where coverage was carried chiefly by TV, which also shaped public opinion about the war. Now, the period from 1953, the end of the Korean War, until 1963 is often seen as a golden age, not just for television, but for America as a whole. During that decade, there were no major wars, and America enjoyed peace and middle class prosperity. I think that peace and prosperity were necessary, at least partly, so that Americans could afford to purchase and focus their attention on the new medium of television. It would have been hard to introduce TV on a massive scale if the country was in the middle of a major war or an economic recession. And I began to wonder if there's a pattern here, if the deep state has historically allowed times of peace in order to introduce the next level of media, meaning the next level of propaganda. Between World War I and World War II, America knew relative peace, no major wars. In that period saw the introduction of another form of household media, radio. In 1920, the year after the Paris Peace Conference decided the aftermath of World War I, just 0.1% of American households owned radios. But by 1941, the year of Pearl Harbor, it had reached 83 to 85%. They were never going to get 100%. After all, a lot of rural homes still didn't even have electricity. It seemed to be reasonable to say that America entered World War II when radio reached saturation, just as Vietnam began when television reached saturation. Now, the Vietnam War ended in 1975, and during the 1980s and 1990s, America knew relative peace. Sure, there was the Grenadier War, a very short war under Reagan. There was the 42-day Iraq War in 1991 under Bush, and under Bill Clinton, uh, we did bomb Bosnia in its conflict with Kosovo. And that lasted at the most about 100 days. But there were no prolonged wars during those 2 decades. Basically, it was a time of peace. Now, if we look back, something else I'm sure everyone would agree was going on before World War II. Radio was introduced into homes. Before Vietnam War, television was introduced into homes. And before 9/11 and the many wars that followed it, computers and the internet were introduced into American homes. In 1984, only 8% of American homes owned computers, but by 2003, the year the Iraq War began, it reached 62%. By the same token, homes with internet access tripled in just 6 years from 18% in 1997 to 54% in 2003. Right now we have the disastrous war with Iran taking place, which not only threatens American hegemony, but threatens to start a global economic collapse, global famine, and perhaps even an exchange of nuclear weapons that could usher in the New World Order. Now, before the Iran war, was there a lull? I would say that there was. Sure, there was still bombing taking place. We gave military assistance to Ukraine and the usual assistance to Israel, but America was not engaged in any new prolonged wars before this war in Iran began. And was there a new form of media introduced to American homes during this time before the Iran war? Yes, there was. It was AI. So the question that arises for me is, has the deep state paused wars in order to introduce the next level of media propaganda into homes and then start the next major war? Maybe not. Maybe it's just a coincidence, but to me, it looks like a pattern.